Hello everyone, welcome back to Chapter 2, Section 4 of the online video course Chinese Traditional Culture and Spiritual Healing. My name is Peng Keming, a teacher at Guangdong University of Foreign Studies.
Zhuangzi's to be truly independent sounds very lofty, but in reality, it's hard to be truly independent. Has everyone really done it?
I want to introduce to you Mr. Wang Yangming, a philosopher that I admire a lot. He did not reach the state of truly independent, but throughout his life, he tried to become truly independent. In his turbulent life, becoming truly independent is the anchor for him to deal with all the criticism he met. Wang Yangming is a thinker and a militarist during the Ming Dynasty, and also a giant of the learning of the heart and mind, or in Chinese, 心学. He is a saint who believed to have achieved the three eternal undertakings of moral composition, which are establishing moralities, making contributions, and founding theories. My heart is bright, and no explanation is needed, were the last words of Wang Yangming. It is fair to say that a bright heart is what Wang Yangming has been striving for, and the words were his final edification to others. Wang Yangming spent his life to understand and transcend the philosophy of Zhuangzi. Wang had a spectacular life, and I want to choose some stories that could best explain his life philosophy. In 1493, Wang Yangming, the 22-year-old son of the Zhuangyuan, or the principal graduate, took the Chinese imperial examination. However, with a huge burden on him, he failed on the exam. Some of the high-ranking officials and dignitaries, including the Prime Minister Li Dongyang, went to Wang's home to comfort him. Li Dongyang thought Wang Yangming must be very depressed, so he tried to comfort him with a joke. He said, "Though you did not make it this time, I believe you will definitely be the top next year. Why don't you prepare a thesis and make it for your next year's success?" To people's surprise, Wang Yangming picked up a brush and wrote a thesis right away. Many of the officials and dignitaries never thought that Wang Yangming could write such a good thesis or in such a short time. Many of them exclaimed, "What a genius!" However, some would put down Wang Yangming, saying that he must be arrogant if he were to become the principal graduate. In 1496, the 25-year-old genius Wang Yangming took the imperial exam again. Unexpectedly, he failed again. Normally, people would think that Wang Yangming must be very upset because he was the son of the principal graduate and he had already written a thesis years ago. But he failed again and again, so he must feel very disgraceful. His father also felt sorry and tried to comfort him by saying that if you try again, you will definitely succeed. Wang Yangming said, laughingly, that others feel ashamed for failing the exam. I feel ashamed for being ashamed to failing the exam. What Wang Yangming said showed his transcendent inner mind and won his father's respect. At the age of 28, Wang Yangming finally came to the third place in the imperial exam. And then he became an official who served in an important position. In 1506, Wang Yangming was 35 years old. He was punished because he stood opposed to a senior official called Liu Jing from a sense of justice. As a result, he was punished with paddling, and later was demoted to Longchang of Guizhou province, which was an uncivilized region at that time. But he was not discouraged. He brought knowledge to the people and was supported by them. Sure, Wang Yangming felt sadness deep inside. He was frustrated by the fact that despite the right thing he did, he got himself into such an awkward and difficult situation. At Longchang, he finally realized that to be a saint, we must find strength from our hearts, rather than looking for it outside. Therefore, he was relieved from the frustration. In 1519, the 48-year-old Wang Yangming took only about 10 days to put down the anti-government movement in Jiangxi initiated by the Prince of Ning, which made him very famous. But after Wang Yangming took control of the movement, he was framed by others, claiming that Wang Yangming was in league with the Prince of Ning. Wang Yangming bore the stigma of collaborating with the enemy, and he was only relieved when the new Emperor Jiajing took the reign in 1521. After his opponent was sentenced to death, Wang was relieved from his dilemma. However, the hardship and the ordeal also became the best opportunity for Wang Yangming to find the truth of his life. After experiencing these major setbacks, he discovered his life philosophy. My conscience alleviates me from my hardships and pain, and helps me to look beyond life and death. He was freed from his pain and hardships because he acted with his own conscience. After he was out of the ordeal, Wang wrote memorials to the emperor, stating his grievance and that of his counterparts. He did this because even though the imperial court had awarded him for his military exploits in controlling the rebellion, he was not officially rehabilitated from the defamation that he had colluded with the enemy. However, Wang Yangming's statements went ignored. What is worse, he experienced a new suppression by the Grand Secretariat Yang Tinghe and his colleagues. In 1522, the 51-year-old Wang Yangming was disappointed and frustrated, so he resigned from the official post on the grounds of bereavement of his father. After his resignation, Wang Yangming returned to his hometown to lecture and founded a college in Zhejiang. He then started to preach Wang studies, meaning the learning of the heart and the mind, which was very different from the mainstream doctrines of the time. He gradually became famous for his lectures. As a result, he was envied and criticized by some people. Some wrote memorials to the emperor, saying that Wang Yangming was spreading heresy. The emperor, not knowing the truth, was alarmed and became dislike of Wang Yangming. In 1527, when Wang Yangming was 56 years old, he was ordered to Guangxi to contain the rebellious force there. It took him several months to complete the task. When Wang Yangming reported his victory over the rebellious force to the Emperor Jiajing wrote a letter to Wang Yiqing, the Grand Secretariat, blaming that Wang Yangming boasted the victory for himself. Moreover, in the letter, Wang Yangming's personality and academic successes were nearly completely negated. After the victory, Wang Yangming caught pneumonia, so he reported to the imperial court for retirement. Before he received an official approval, he left Guangxi. In 1529, the 58-year-old Wang Yangming passed away on the ship in Jiangxi on his way home. On his deathbed, he asked his disciples to come over. When his disciples asked Wang Yangming, "What do you want to say?" he smiled and said, "My heart is upright, and no explanation is needed." When people in Jiangxi knew of his death, they came to mourn for him in sackcloth. It is noteworthy that in ancient China, people would only wear sackcloth when they mourn for the death of their parents or the elderly in the family. This showed how the local people respected Wang Yangming. When the imperial court knew of his death, the emperor did not feel pity at all, but rather he took away Wang Yangming's noble titles for the reason that he left his position without official approval and that he spread heresy. As a result, Wang Yangming's theories were regarded as pseudo-knowledge and were prohibited from being spread. Therefore, despite his victories in wars and successes in his studies, Wang Yangming was suppressed time and time again and died with disgrace. It was not until the next emperor, Emperor Longqing, took the throne that Wang Yangming was rehabilitated. His life indeed was full of humiliation and setbacks. Many would feel pity for Wang Yangming. One day, Wang Yangming's disciples were discussing the uneven treatment that Wang Yangming had received. Wang Yangming asked them, "Why do you think I have been criticized so much?" Some disciples said it was due to his achievements. Others said it was the conflicts between his theories and the mainstream ideology. Some say that there are so many different people in the world, and there are always people who cannot understand you. Wang Yangming said, "You might all be right, but what I want to say most is that in the past, I was afraid of offending others and being misunderstood. Now, I believe in my own conscience and act in accordance with it. Now, I don't care about how others would judge or defame me." Conscience means that Wang Yangming had an upright heart and listened to what his heart told him. Thus, he was able to maintain peace and inner harmony despite all the upheavals. Wang Yangming had experienced so many setbacks throughout his life that many around him felt sympathy for him, but he had reconciled with his life. Wang Yangming had an upright heart. He had tried his best, and the results didn't matter. He had let others' judgments go. Failures and others' judgments are not the most terrible thing in life. What is truly devastating is that your heart is masked by the failure caused by the judgments of others. Wang Yangming's final words, "My heart is bright and no explanation is needed," serve as the best explanation of being truly independent on the results of life choices and on others' judgments. In the Analects of Confucius, there was a story about others' defamation on Confucius. Some disciples asked Wang Yangming, "Even a saint like Confucius fell victim to being denigrated and slandered. Why is that?" Wang Yangming replied, "The defamation comes from the outside. Even a saint could not be freed from external judgments. The true value of a person is self-study. If one is indeed an upright person, even though everyone slanders him, he will not be hurt. Put it this way, the clouds can block the sun, but cannot reduce the sunlight. One of Wang Yangming's poem goes like this: everyone has their own compass, and the origin of all things is always at our heart. It is laughable to recall that I was not aware of the truth and always tried to find answers outside. We hope that every one of us, as we experience the ebb and flows of life, can find our own compasses. This is the end of section 4 of chapter 2. Before you go, I have a question for you to think about, and you could see the question on the screen. Think about it. What is your most unforgettable failure, and how did you do to recover from it? Thank you for watching. See you next time.